Stalin, who was one of the most powerful atheists that the world ever saw, never did anything that would be rash to throw his life away. We've got to remember, too, that the only reason why this armistice happened was that when Eisenhower replaced Truman, he openly threatened China and North Korea that if they didn't come to the peace talks, he would launch nuclear weapons on them. That is a fact that seems to have been selectively forgotten in our times. Now, they came to the table. This is the other thing. This is not a war between North and South Korea. People forget that the reason why Kim Il-sung invaded the South was that the division of Korea was begun by the U.S. when they placed Simon Rhee as their puppet president of a new country called South Korea, which effectively was a U.S. satellite, at a time when the Korean peninsula was not divided, except by, like East and West Germany, by powers outside of the Korean people. See, the Korean people had not decided to become North and South Korea. The first people to make this happen were the Americans creating the satellite, and then Kim, for whatever his crazy communist ideas were, decided to liberate the South from the Americans and unify Korea as Korea. And that was of course, he was going to make it communist, and he was supported by the Soviets in a proxy war to do it. But that's a side of this thing that's not known. The other side is that the armistice was not signed by South Korea. It was signed by the United States with North Korea. So it's an issue between us and them, not the South and the North Koreans. And the other thing is that it's stated in the armistice, if anyone will read it, is that within several weeks or a few months, there was a pledge that all large superpowers or foreign powers that were in the Korean peninsula would withdraw, and the Korean people would find some way to find a peaceful solution to coexistence and demilitarize the area. The Chinese honored the armistice. They left North Korea. The Americans did not. They stayed. And so that already broke the armistice. The other thing, too, imagine if you're America and people in Ottawa, in the capital of Canada, with huge NATO help, and had large-scale maneuvers every year in April and October. They were basically rehearsing a decapitation strike on Washington to kill the Senate, the Supreme Court, and the President, and then rehearsing how they would then invade and occupy America. That happens every year. And with the South Koreans as satellite allies to the Americans, they rehearse this decapitation maneuver every April, and it's pointed directly at the North Koreans. Now, you don't have to like Kim Jong-il, but if you're anybody put in that position, you're not going to like that. I don't think we would stand for that. And so that's a perspective. The other perspective is, it's interesting. Why did they start building bombs? You know, that started happening after 1989, when the umbrella of protection that they had in the Soviet Union being in existence, they didn't have to have a protection of a deterrent of atomic weapons. The Soviet Union had them against the Americans. So they knew that if bombs flew into Korea, there would be mutually assured destruction. But when the Soviet Union collapsed, the umbrella collapsed. And suddenly, North Korea didn't have a nuclear umbrella, and the Americans were still keeping to their "we'll strike whenever we damn well feel like it with atomic weapons on you." Now, what do you do when some country says that? I mean, you have to make nuclear weapons, because if you have them, it's your one way to survive such a threat. And we have been threatening the North Koreans like that since 1950. So what happened is they started building an atomic weapons program. And what then happened is that we almost went to war in 1994. And then Kim Il-sung died and was replaced by Kim Jong-il, his son, the father of the current leader of North Korea. And there was a period there during the Clinton administration where the North Koreans stopped. They did actually stop their nuclear program. They did actually freeze it. And the Americans were in negotiation to give them civilian nuclear reactors that would be less likely to be used for creating weapons, although not completely foolproof. But as a gesture, that was happening. Young reactor where the bombs were being investigated, tested, and well, the concept, because they didn't light one off until 2006, I think. That was all stopped when the Bush administration, the neoconservatives came in. And I remember how those times well in 2000, 2001. It was like suddenly all the forward progress to denuclearizing North Korea with the work towards giving them an assurance that they would not ever be attacked by atomic weapons. They didn't have them. The Bush administration made a policy change where they basically slammed the door on all that progress. We're very rude. We're basically, and then by the time Bush came out and did his Axis of Evil speech in February of 2002, very rapidly, when they were put on, we're not only saying we're not going to help you get out of this nuclear game, we put you on our hit list. You're one of the top 3 states that we're openly saying we are going to overthrow through any means possible, including military and hinting nuclear, because they already had the threat open in the air for 60 years or so, 50 at that time, or 45. As Wesley Clark was a whistleblower, former NATO commander, retired a couple weeks after 9/11, basically went to visit the Pentagon, Joint Chiefs of Staff, to offer his help. And he ended up having a couple in that week, 2 weeks after, and then the following few weeks, he had a couple of very interesting meetings with generals trying to help them understand what the Pentagon chief, the chief neoconservative, Donald Rumsfeld, was doing, in that his reaction to the attack by Al-Qaeda of 9/11 was to start setting in motion plans to take down Iraq. They say, well, why is Iraq being put into this? The general said there's no connection. We don't really know why. And then a week later, he comes back and asks the general how things are going, and he said, oh, it's even worse. And then he shows him the memo from Rumsfeld, basically stating that there are 7 countries that are on a list for regime change, by military means, and unilaterally if need be. And it was Iraq, Iran, North Korea, and Somalia, Lebanon, meaning Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, Syria, and Somalia, I think I said, and there was a concerted plan to go ahead and do this just a few weeks after 9/11. So, it's been on the neoconservative agenda, and in my book on Nostradamus, The War with Iran, I look at the evolution of doctrine of neoconservatism, neoliberalism, and clearly there's a paper trail that shows that they were seeking and hoping to have a Pearl Harbor event that would speed up their agenda and stifle dissent in the Congress. Everybody automatically goes lockstep with the president, whatever idiot he may be, if there is a attack on the United States.